Dude, what the hell? I just got a Sandwich Lady event, and I got a thing called a sweet roll or a bread roll, and I'd never seen this before. This is like a rare item. It has no, I just ate it. Alright, well, what is going on, everybody? Boys and girls, welcome back to some old school RuneScape. It's been a while, I know, I'm sorry, I'm garbage. I can't keep saying this, I understand, but we're back. Hopefully I'm good and back on track. I apologize for the delays in videos, guys, I really do. But let's stop making excuses. We're here today to talk about equipment rebalancing, or power creep. This is a real issue that's been going on in old school RuneScape lately for years now, and it happens in a lot of open MMORPGs specifically, but old school RuneScape specifically has been really bad about this. Now, the old school client or version, the not live version of the game, has been going on for about 8 years now, which, first of all, that's crazy that old school RuneScape as a standalone has been going on for 8 years now. I have not played for all of those 8 years. I played when it first released, and I played a little bit in the middle, but I've been mainly starting to come back when I started my Hardcore Iron Man a couple of years ago now at this point. But that's crazy, and with combat developing over the years, and so much more equipment being introduced into the game, regular updates every week, it's kind of hard to avoid. Basically, there's so many things in this game now that it's hard to balance new rewards around all of the existing content, aka the power creep. Basically, the gist of it is that there's so many quote-unquote best-in-slot weapons and items now, that how are they supposed to continue to find things that are going to be better or worse? And obviously they hear us, because a lot of the existing items don't actually reflect their strength. Like, for example, it's one thing that we're going to talk about a lot in this video, like the Blowpipe. The Toxic Blowpipe is probably one of the best ranged weapons in the game, and you can get it relatively early on, not necessarily if you're like an Iron Man or a Hardcore Iron Man, but a Blowpipe doesn't require that crazy of stats. I believe, if we take a quick look right down here, I believe you only need 75 75 ranged for the Toxic Blowpipe, which seems pretty crazy, but considering it's maybe the best ranged weapon in the game, and even then, if you consider maybe the Twisted Bow, which is arguably the best ranged weapon in the game, it only requires 75 ranged as well. Now, there's differences where you would use the Blowpipe and the Twisted Bow, but arguably they both require only 75 ranged. What? Why does that, how does that not seem like an issue to anyone else? So they released a survey, and they were talking about some things about power creep and what other players thought, and basically over half of the players surveyed that power creep is something they think about, and that it existed within old school, which it very obviously does. Most players felt that power creep isn't a major problem, and over half of those surveyed that they were worried about the long-term health, though. So they may have thought that power creep wasn't a problem now, but in the near future, it is going to be. Now, most players surveyed that they would not like to see powerful equipment weakened, aka the Blowpipe, and so on and so forth. Although they were going to basically, Jagex is like, so there's no tiers in old school RuneScape. If you're familiar with RuneScape 3, there's these things called weapon tiers. So basically, like, there's tier 5 weapons, tier 10 weapons, and there's a clear structure of which weapon is better. In old school RuneScape, we just have level requirements. So basically, once you have a level requirement, you can wield or wear whatever item it is if you have, like, say, the quest done or anything like that. So there's not a clear balance of what weapons are better. Sure, in attack and strength you have bronze, iron, steel, black. You can see it getting progressively bigger and better, but there's, like, battle axes, scimitars, daggers. Scimitars are the clear better choice for training. Why would you ever use, say, a battle axe? Because they're slower. They may hit stronger, but they're not near as accurate. So that's what they're trying to figure out here. Aw, thank you. You too. People are so nice in this game. So here is what that Jagex ended up proposing, and granted, remember, they're not gonna poll this. They asked if they threw it out there. They said should they poll it or not, and half of us surveyed that it should be. They believed it necessary. Just do it. Do whatever you gotta do. But the other half thought that it should be pulled. Now, I'm going to spoil it for you now. Later down at the end, they're like, we're not going to pull it anyway, no matter what, because the honest and short answer is RuneScape needs these tweaks. If not, it's going to die. Power creep is a real thing. Jagex has stated it's happening. So they're going to work with us as best as we can. Now, here are the biggest proposed changes. There was lots of little things like tweaking dragon hides to be more balanced in the combat circle, adding like ranged buffs, and like making it to where maces and battle axes had more power over scimitars. But the main changes, the ones that people are going to be most upset about, it's going to affect a bigger majority of the player base, are things like the toxic blowpipe, the twisted bow, and the scythe of Vautour. Those are going to be the most power creep related concerns Jagex has at this point in time. Like I said, there are littler ones down the road, but they're not going to affect the majority of the player base. They're going to be mostly for newer players. So let's get into more so the bigger concerns here. So the biggest one that I'm excited about, honestly, for the future is that more weapon and gear variety. I think Jagex's biggest problem here is that, and they go into this a little bit in the end, is that there's so many people playing this game, but we all look the same. There's one so, not to get, but there's all just such a cut and clear pathway to gear and weapons, right? You strive for the rune scimitar early on, because that's the best weapon in the game. It's the best non-members weapon. It's the best free-to-play. You get it quick, and it's just, that's it. Then you go for the dragon scimitar, then the whip, then, you go on to raids and all of that. Abyssal Tentacle, Trident, Blowpipe, yada, yada, yada. The pathway is very clear on what you want to do, and Jagex wants to eliminate that, so they want to add in more weapons, more gear, noting that only scimitars are viable for training, and that most of the meta gear is too expensive for the average player. So that's why everyone's running around in full rune armor, a helm of Netzenot, a dragon scimitar, and that's what every mid-level account looks like, because that's just what the best stuff is. So they're wanting to add in more variety, and I'm cool with that. If they balance it out correctly, I'm all about it. And so lots of players ask whether weapons in the level 75 category should be moved up to 80 and 85. Why can our skills go to 99, if everything, the best weapons are at 75 capped? And if that's not even, that's not even true with some of the things, because, the blowpipe and twisted bow, like I showed you earlier, are both level 75. But both of them are considered considerably the best ranged weapons in the game, so why are they both at that same tier? That's kind of what Jagex is getting at here. Too many overpowered weapons are just easy to use for lower level players, and it doesn't make sense to get everything accessible at 75. So now we'll get into some of their proposed changes. So, just to quickly kind of run down some of them, because there's a ton of them, and I don't want to spend too much time going over every single one of these, because a lot of them I'm not very familiar with, because, like I said, most of my time in RuneScape has been on this mid-level hardcore Iron Man account, so I don't have access to a lot of these higher tier weapons. I'm familiar with some of them, but I'm not going to be very well versed in what a lot of this means for the later part of the game. But just very quickly, the Ghazi Rapier, which I'm pretty sure was added into the Last Man Standing Bounty Hunter fiasco, they're going to raise it from 75 attack to 80. The Blade of Saliador, which is from the Song of the Elves place, the Gauntlet, 75 attack to 80 attack. Again, they're putting them both at 80 attack. Why? Why are they putting everything at 80 attack? How is that going to solve the problem? Yes, they're raising the bar 5 levels, but they're all still the same requirement. So I guess it's just this is the strength. The Inquisitor's Mace is the strength weapon. The Blade of Saliador is the attack. And the Ghazi Rapier is the, I don't know. They both all require attack, so why would I say that? I don't freaking know. Trident of the Swamp is going up 3 levels to 78 magic. That's kind of a weird design choice. Why the 3 levels? I don't know. But the Sanguestian staff goes from 75 to 82. At least they're not making it all, 85 or 80. They're making it weird numbers, I guess, to kind of balance out. Here's the code I want at 80 magic. So the Trident, it kind of has a more clear-cut schedule here, or, a lineup. You go from the Trident of the Swamp from 78, Kodai Wand at 80, and then Sanguinesti Staff at 82. Now, I'm sure they're going to all have different... I'm sure not all three of these are going to be, like, the clear-cut best choice. Like, I'm sure the Trident of the Swamp is going to have more different uses, rather, than the Kodai Wand, but the Sanguinesti Staff is going to be the superior choice overall. I think that's kind of what they're getting at here. Then you have the Nightmare Staffs going from 65 to 72, with an orb attached, 75 to 82. Don't know what the difference there is. I know there's, like, the harmonizable orbs, but I don't know what the hell any of that is for. Dragon Hunter Crossbow going from 65 range to 70. That kind of seems better, because 65 range, like, that's worse than Carol's Crossbow. And I'm pretty sure the Dragon Hunter Crossbow and, like, Armored Crossbow are way better than the Carol's Crossbow. So I don't know why that was so low to begin with. Dragon Hunter Lance going up 8 attack levels. That seemed kind of crazy. That almost seems like the biggest upside. I don't know where you get that from. Probably Vorkath. But 8 whole attack levels, and then the Scythe of Atur going up 10 from 75 attack to 85 attack. That's crazy. The Sanguinesti Staff is a raise reward, I think, from Theater of Blood? Is it from Chambers of Xeric? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know the difference. I haven't ever done either one of them. Requirements aside, these are some items that are simply too powerful. Problems vary per item, so we'll cover each one individually. So now they're nerfing other things that aren't weapons. Now, like I said, all of these are proposed as of right now. None of these changes have happened, but Jagex is not going to pull this. They're going to talk with us a little bit about it, but essentially, it's going to come down to Jagex is doing this no matter what, because they've stated it has to happen, or future updates are going to be meaningless. So this was a big one that people are upset about, the Nets and Not Faceguard. Simply put, the Faceguard is a little too powerful, considering the level at which it's rewarded. We'd like to adjust the stats ever so slightly. So they're lowering the strength bonus from +6 to +5. Here's kind of a little quick rundown of the stats. And in addition, they're changing the Basilisk Knights. So currently they require a Slayer level of 60 to fight. So essentially I could go fight them, but the Basilisk Knights themselves are tricky. And so they're going to remove the special attack from the base Basilisk Knight, but remain on the superior version. They're going to reduce their defense, but they're going to raise the Slayer level. We don't know what to, they're just talking about it. Now here we are with the Twisted Bow, and generally they're happy with it, which I'm surprised, because it's kind of literally the best weapon in the game. If not, you know, just the best ranged weapon. But I think that's kind of what they were planning for when they made the Twisted Bow. Does that make sense? You know, it's not like the Blowpipe, which was not intended to be the best ranged weapon in slot. I think they were meaning that with the Twisted Bow, though. That's why it's so expensive. But they're making relatively minor changes, basically just to reflect the item strength. And they're removing the prayer bonus, which kind of sucks. They're taking the prayer bonus from a +4 to a +0, but their excuse is that it's not a godly item, which I guess makes sense. But they're changing the range from 75 to 85, bro! That's insanity! I mean, it's not, considering it's the best ranged weapon in the game, and that puts it above the Toxic Blowpipe, which makes way more sense. Alright, and to finish up here, these were the last ones I was going to talk about. Like I was saying earlier, these are kind of more minor changes to more... Ooh, I got a bird's nest, hold on. These are kind of more minor changes that aren't going to affect the later part of the game. These are going to be more early level accounts, maybe some mid-level accounts with like Black Dragonhide or Blessed Dragonhide, but they're basically just changing them to more accurately reflect the combat triangle, especially against magic attacks with negligible negative stats to offset this. It goes against the whole thing, so they're going to make the melee parts of it, the melee defense capabilities, encourage players to try different armor pieces to make up for the loss in stats. So they're really wanting you to mix and match. They're going to really want, I'm telling you, and they say this at the end of the post here. Their main concern, I promise you, this is the only thing they care about, is that every player is running around the game world looking the exact same, and they hate that. They hate that because they want players to have their own adventure, not go with the meta. So Din's Bulwark, which is that huge, hilarious shield that makes you run funny, apparently it has 0 negative bonuses, so they're going to offset a little bit by adding in -25 magic defense and reducing the melee defense by 25%, which is like crazy to me because that's what this whole shield is for, right? It's a big tanky shield. And then finally, the Toxic Blowpipe. This is the big boy. This is the one that most people are upset about. Requiring 75 range to wield a Toxic Blowpipe is the go-to option for many, or maybe even most, PVM situations. In terms of raw damage output, It's leaps and bounds better than the previous tiers of weaponry. Like I was saying, the Carol's Crossbow, even the Crystal Bow, because the Crystal Bow has its unique uses, but the Toxic Blowpipe is literally just better, faster, stronger, more accurate, no matter what. Even when you're using your lower tier darts, like Mithril or Adamant, which is the most used dart for like Ironman, because Dragon darts are near harder to get. Sorry, my phone went off because I'm unprofessional. When the Toxic Blowpipe was originally pulled, they intended it as an attack speed of 3 game cycles. I didn't know that, but due to an oversight, when you're using rapid attack, it's released with an attack speed of 2 game cycles. It got into the meta, they just never changed it back. So many players called for it to be slow, but once you know, with the recent Trailblazer League, when the whole attack speed of weapons are changed, everything changes. The whole meta changes. So the Blowpipe is an important part of old school and something they can't just get rid of. But the fact that they said that, rather than remove it, that sentence scares me. That sentence scares me because that means they've thought about removing it. I don't think they would. There's no way they could just remove the Blowpipe, right? That would be crazy. They'd like to propose some change that will allow it to remain viable in many situations while still providing room for other ranged items to take the spotlight. So they're going to change the high attack speed, definitely contributes to its strength, but the real benefit ties with its accuracy, which is then increased further based on the darts you use. So they're thinking about nerfing the darts more so, or changing the way that darts work than changing the actual Blowpipe. These changes would make the Toxic Blowpipe the best ranged weapon for lower defense targets, while providing the opportunity to release high defense monsters to make something like the Twisted Bow or something new they add more viable. So like in Bandos now, melee is going to generally surpass the Toxic Blowpipe. And for Zulrah, the Toxic Blowpipe will still be the better option if you don't own a Twisted Bow. So now the Twisted Bow has some stance and is technically better. Well, it was always better, but now it is viably better in certain situations than the Toxic Blowpipe. Vorkath, it's no longer going to be the best weapon for players who have not yet obtained a Dragon Hunter Crossbow. So now there's going to be some variety here. Maybe the Crystal Bow, probably not Carol's Bow, but there's going to be options here instead of just the Toxic Blowpipe. And unless you get a Dragon Hunter Crossbow, obviously that's going to be the best thing for Vorkath. The use of a Dragon or Armadillo Crossbow, Armadillo, I forgot about Armadillo, will surpass the Toxic Blowpipe. So there you go. And then Fight Caves, this was the one most people are upset about because they're like, Inferno, the whole Inferno meta is kind of based around the Blowpipe, especially if you don't have a Twisted Bow. So they're going to have to really think hard about how they're going to do this, because people are going to be raging if they have to rethink how to do the whole Inferno. And then finally, they go into buffing some things. Now, these aren't as substantial because the Dragon Bone Necklace and Bone Crusher Necklace are already kind of obsolete, but they're going to reduce the prayer requirements from 80 to 70, remove the delay before special attacks, and kind of make them closer to an Amulet of Glory standard, with fewer defense and strength bonuses. They're also going to buff the Crystal Armor and Crystal Bow, which I think is long overdue. The Crystal Bow is such a cool weapon, and like the Crystal Shield and now the newly introduced Crystal like Armor with the Song of the Elves quest, it's all really dope, and it's like the highest tier stuff in the game. So you would think that it was the best armor and weapons in the game to begin with. But it's not. It's just expensive. So they're going to actually try to reflect it by making it to where, you know, they're going to increase the damage bonus with the Crystal Bow, which I think is great. Even when you're wearing a full set of Crystal Armor, they're going to add it. They're going to up the damage from 15 to 20%. So that's kind of cool if you own the whole set. If not, it's still not going to be that great. But it will solidify the Crystal Armor and Bow as a viable option instead of just, you know, running to the Toxic Blowpipe. Now, a lot of these changes don't really affect me that much because I'm such a mid-level account. I'm not used to how some of these work anyway. I'm not very familiar with the Blowpipe because I've never really used it. But I can see how these are going to be big deals for players coming up. These are going to be huge changes. And Jagex they're not going to care. They never do. Alright, the last thing I want to finish up with is the sentence that I've been saying this whole video, and this just proves it. There is a huge variety of armor and weaponry available to us, yet every armor-clad champion wandering Glennior in search of adventure looks practically the same. This section focuses on improving the diversity of kit available, giving more purpose to lower-level equipment in particular. Jagex is very, very serious about the early game because that's what most players that are joining back are going to be. They're going to be new players starting fresh, and they don't want, they had the same thing with splashing a couple, maybe a year or so ago, where players just joining the game would see other players standing there just casting spells for hours at chickens, and they're like, what the hell is going on, bro? So they got rid of splashing completely, basically, in like Lumbridge. You just can't do it. So this is kind of what they're all about. They want the early game to be as, open and easily accessible as possible. So they buffed Warhammers a little bit, changing requirements from attack to strength levels, increasing the strength bonus they offer, so it's only slightly lower than their battle axe counterparts. They changed maces, spears, and hostas so that they, have attack speed from 5 game cycles to 4, matching that of scimitars, because scimitars are the clear-cut choice for early players, and they're changing the attack speed of the dragon mace as well. Then all metal armor, so med helms, square shields, and all of those are outclassed by full helms, kite shields, because they're more defensible. So they're going to propose that they get increased negative range attack bonus and remove the negative range attack bonus from meta helms and square shields to kind of even them out. So now you can kind of more so choose, again, they're really weighing heavily into the fashionscape side of things here. So it's very clear that is what's happening. So naturally they're going to expect a lot of discussion because a lot of people are going to be pissed on this. And it's gonna generate a lot of dialogue. A lot of people are gonna be, especially with combat achievements right around the corner. This is a big deal, and it's been nearly 3 years since the release of Theater Blood, and they're wanting to release a 3rd raid. So they're gonna be releasing way more powerful shit into the game. So they really want to get this power creep situation settled. Now, this was from, this was back from about a week ago, 3 days ago, 3 or 4 days ago. Now, just yesterday, they released a statement where they released their first iteration of the Rebalance blog, and there was a lot of feedback. Understandably, so people took to Twitter and they were pissed. Very rightly so, because they said, they're not polling this. They've gone through and said that they're not polling this. We're not going to spend the next few days continuing to collate your feedback in preparation for a revised blog early next week. We'll be opening a beta world for testing, so all of these changes we're going to get to try out. We may not get the final say, but we're going to get to try our damnedest and see if it's good or not. I don't know. What do you guys think? It's going to be interesting. Thanks for watching, though. Sorry this video took so long to get out. I'm trying really hard to get consistent again. I promise. I'm trying. I actually just quit my job a couple weeks ago because I finally started making enough money from home that I can focus more fully on content creation and just being at home in general with my family and getting more shit done. And I'll have a lot more time. So hopefully that will start to mix into my YouTube. Unfortunately, in the hierarchy of my needs right now, my YouTube channel is at the bottom, but I want it to be back up at the top. I want it to be back up there with my fitness, my family, everything. So, hopefully, I will be back soon with the daily uploads. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys tomorrow, maybe. If not, I promise I'm still here. I love you guys. Thank you for sticking around. We're so close to 300 subscribers. We'd already be there right now if I wasn't a schmuck and would upload daily. My hardcore Iron Man is obviously still here. Someone just said they're a big fan. Are they talking to me? Probably not. Oh, there's Alkin over there. Bye.